it cannot, in the best of times, be underestimated in terms of how difficult it is to raise money and how persistent you have to be. And in the current economic climate, it is even more difficult. The art and science, there's stuff that you have to do kind of spontaneously, and it's hard to plan, hard to learn, hard to predict. And then there's hard science to it as well. And Joe and I are going to cover both of those. We're going to introduce ourselves in a minute after I go through the agenda. This agenda, we'll talk about sources of capital. Where are the different places you can go to raise money? Then we'll talk a little bit about what kind of mindset will the funder, and in most cases it's an investor as opposed to someone who's loaning cash. We'll use the word investor to mean both someone that is loaning money and someone who is investing in a company. And then we'll talk about how to approach those, and this is very practical, approaching sources of capital. What do you do? How do you get organized? One of the science pieces of it is a business plan. There's things that a business plan has to have, should have, and we'll cover that. Then once you're organized with a business plan, it's time to go out and make the pitch, and so we'll talk about the steps of making the pitch. And if you're lucky enough to find investors who are interested in your company, you're going to go through something called due diligence. And that's where they basically read your plan, they talk to you, but then they decide they've got to rip it apart and rip you apart and really understand the level of risk associated with investing money in your company. So we'll talk about how you can survive that. And then we'll talk about some miscellaneous items as well. My background, I've spent my career in the publishing field, and that morphed into the internet business in the mid to late 90s. So I've really concentrated on that. I've worked for large companies, small companies, and startup companies, basically have a hard time keeping a job. I've also started a consulting firm called the Launch Group, which works with clients on either launching new products from an existing company or launching new businesses together. I'm currently the director of the Digital Media Incubator in the School of Technological Entrepreneurship, where we work with students and faculty to develop digital media ideas that can be actually spun out of the university. And so we have teams of students and faculty working on that in a multidisciplinary way, and it's very interesting and exciting work. A little bit, not so much about my background, but why I've always gravitated to launching new businesses is really that you are always dealing with futures. And that means that you're talking about things that can be. You're not burdened by explaining past performance because there is no past performance. As you get into due diligence, it is your performance as an individual that gets tested. But the company that you're trying to launch, the idea that you're trying to create, has no history. It's all about trying to create a future. But the really exciting and the creative thing, and this is where kind of the art comes in, is moving ideas from kind of abstract notions to concrete operations that deliver that to a market is an extremely addictive process. It's really exciting. You sit down with a team of people and you have an idea, and over time, thrashing around and struggling, you begin to get that idea to form into a shape that is a company. And then you begin to test that in the outside market with customers and with investors. And so that's really what keeps me returning to the new business development process.
I'm a Northeastern graduate, so I think a lot of you folks are probably associated somehow with the university. I graduated in '77, and I was just telling Dan that it's a completely different college, and it's just a world-class university now, and so it's a great school. Like I said, I've been with 350 companies, and I typically go in. I'm a CPA, but I don't practice public accounting. I'm more of a management accountant. I go into companies and I'm involved in their back office. I'm involved with helping them raise money. I've done all kinds of financings for companies. I help them, friends and family, bank financing, equity type of financing. A lot of them have been successful. A lot of them haven't been. I think probably you learn more when you plan and you attempt to do a finance and it isn't successful. So you probably, and I've had a ton of those. And that's kind of tough being a consultant because you don't get paid when that happens. I'm right now doing, I started a service a couple of months ago in light of this financial meltdown. And I had clients, I mean, they were off the wall. They wanted to get their money, millions of dollars some of these clients had, and literally stuff it into a mattress. I mean, they were just, didn't trust the banks, and banks weren't lending. So I started a service helping companies find debt capital, find bank financing. And I send out some emails, and I got a tremendous response. So I'm working with close to 20 companies right now across the country, trying to just help them find bank financing. A lot of these companies are very, very good companies. They're very strong balance sheets, and it's tough out there. So if it's tough to find debt capital, it's even more difficult to find equity financing.
The first thing is you need to do your homework. You have to be highly prepared. You have to really understand all aspects of what you are trying to create, of the market, of the competition, et cetera. A lack of preparation, a lack of understanding, a sort of I'll get back to you, while that sometimes is the right answer to a question that you don't know the answer to, too many of those sinks the boat. A lot of this is passion. There's a term of art for you, but you can really tell the people who are going to do well in the process of raising money, which is highly frustrating, because they have a passion about it. They almost don't hear the negatives. They're just focused on the excitement of what they're trying to do. So that's a key ingredient. If you're trying to fall in love with an idea that you're trying to raise money for, my suggestion would be, sort of back off and reformulate. You have to have a lot of passion. It can't be one person, although someone just told me that 60% of companies are one person, and both Joe and I have done independent consulting work as a single practitioner, and what you do is you bring in the resources that you need to a solution. But if you're raising money, probably you're going to have a team around you. And that team needs to somehow, through this process, demonstrate their capability. So if there's one kind of hard-charging leader and 3 or 4 people sort of in the background with their heads down, scuffing around, that's going to be a problem. You've got to share that energy and excitement with the people that are on your team. And then there's real science around the economic rationale. The numbers really have to be understood backwards and forwards. When someone points to a single number in an income statement and says, how do you get to that? You have to have a set of assumptions that underlie that reflect your knowledge of the marketplace. And then there's something called PDL, which we'll talk about towards the end of the presentation. And it really is just plain dumb luck. Particularly early stage investors, early stage companies looking for some small amount of capital. It could be someone in the car repair shop that you're waiting for your car's oil to be changed, and you could strike up a conversation with someone, and that person could have money to invest in your company. And then suddenly you launch the company, and the company goes on to great success. And it was just PDL that happened.
10 years ago, trying to raise money for a .com, it was fun. If you're out 20 years ago, 25 years ago, trying to raise money for a microcomputer, it was fun. The PDL also has to do with the timing and the business environment out there right now.